Welcome back.
Hey, got to figure out what your new moniker is so that I know how. I can't say Steve Bacon anymore.
No,
Like, so
can't say that anymore.
not that I can't, but
Yeah,
I mean,
you can, but
welcome back to our podcast. It's the Professor and Stephanie Bastion.
and this is a different episode, even though I'm wearing the same thing.
Yeah, that's funny.
We were having a conversation out in the hallway about the work.
Yeah, I'd love to just unpack. We've been on a break. Obviously, we missed a couple of drops. I was traveling. You were traveling. We did the live. That was fun.
That was good.
And so we were traveling because of some mastermind stuff and some family stuff and just vacation. But you've been traveling for purpose. And I would love to unpack the things that have been occurring and maybe hear some of the stories of the why that, because you've been in Tennessee, you've been
Teaching at the prison here in Arizona.
Yeah, people spend their entire prison career trying to get out, and you're spending all your time trying to get back in. So, in a good way.
Yeah.
So maybe let's unpack some of that, because we were having a chat in the hallway, and it was just really amazing and profound, and I'd love to hear more about it.
You know, the funny thing that recently, since this awakening, I've experienced about creation is I remember speaking that I desired to get into prisons. And when this was when I was still living in California.
So is that why you robbed the bank? Or
this is why I was still living in California, working at the rehab. I was like, this is great, but I really desire to get into prisons. And not connecting it until yesterday that every single decision that led from that point on led to me getting into the prison. Me offering to coach that millionaire for free last summer changed his life, and his way of paying me back was to pay for my registration into this group called the Genius Network, which is really exclusive and very expensive. Well, he paid for me to get in. The first person I meet is Andre Norman, who is a celebrity of celebrities when it comes to the prison system.
Wow.
And so my first meeting at Genius, I go to Andre and I said, I desire to be in the prisons too. And he said, bet. And that was it. I've been going to prisons ever since. And it is really the joy of my life right now. Or of my career, I should say.
Yeah.
It's one of the most life-changing and profound experiences I've ever had. To go inside and to sit with convicted killers and then show nothing but love and watch them respond to love is incredible.
Wow.
To witness. And you realize, and I've been in both men and women's prisons, these people crave love so much. Just want somebody to love them.
Right.
And I've got a million stories, and I'm grateful to Genius Network And I'm grateful to Andre Norman for Andre taking me on and mentoring me in this space.
Yeah, that's cool.
And allowing me to shadow him and do podcasts with him and really teach me, you know, what goes on behind those walls and how a difference can really be made.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'd like to find out, like, what was it that you were so driven to go serve in the prison that way? Like, what was it that you felt like what was inspiring you? What was motivating you? Because just in general, and this is a very general viewpoint, just in general, the societal idea of like, well, you crossed too many lines, you know, broke too many laws or whatever, and so we're gonna put you away because you're a danger either to yourself and to the general population. That kind of judgment in this society doesn't lead to a lot of compassion, and
sure.
So, maybe unpack what inspired you. Like, what was the motivating?
Well, we're gonna find out as I say it. How about that?
Sweet.
This is gonna unfold and unpack as I'm saying it, but every single human being watching this podcast right now is one action away from ending up behind those bars.
Mm-hmm.
One drink away from vehicular manslaughter, involuntary.
Mm-hmm.
One impulse of anger from pushing someone out of anger and they fall and hit their head and die.
Mm.
One incident that causes a level of frustration for them to have a psychotic break. At the women's prison, some of the women have killed the men that was trafficking them.
Mm.
Or someone that was pimping them.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone that was abusing them. And that was their way to get out. And so they gladly are doing the time.
Right. Yeah, 'cause now
but they feel free.
They're right. They feel safer.
They feel safer.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Some motherfuckers belong in there.
Yeah.
Some of them belong in there.
Uh-huh.
And I've made that very clear. I'm like, no, you belong in here. You can't be out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make you anything other than unsafe to yourself and to the rest of the population. I'm not judging you.
Right.
You're just unsafe. Right.
How much of that is their...
Most of it is childhood trauma.
So mental health.
It's mental health.
Mm.
It's trauma. It's all trauma. No child, and I was sharing this. I was in Trousdale Correctional Facility. They're being investigated by the DOJ right now, and
investigated for what?
Because of all the stabbings and rapings and killings that are going on inside of the prison. And so I get a call from Andre. Hey, we can call back into Trousdale. Let's go. So we're there, and I'm in this room with all the gang leaders. So they took all the gang leaders because we were on the worst block of the whole prison. And they took all the gang leaders, Dre, our fearless leader. It's like when you think about, let me explain Andre. When you think about Tony Stark and what he is to the Avengers, or I guess even Captain America, who's the leader?
I mean,
is it Captain America or is it Tony Stark?
It depends on who you ask.
Okay, all right. So whichever one is the leader to you,
Uh-huh.
that's who Andre is to us band of Avengers when we go inside these prisons. Andre's the Tony Stark. He's the Captain America. He's the Bill Belichick. He knows who can do what, who's great at what, and who needs to be where.
Now, totally sidebar. I know you're a 49ers fan, but why do you keep bringing up Bill Belichick and not Bill Walsh?
Because I was too young with Bill to understand Bill Walsh.
But you're a 49ers fan.
I get it.
Like, okay.
All right. But
like I said, random.
I'm a 49ers fan.
Random side thought.
I'm a 49ers fan. I'm not a fanatic.
I mean, he was.
All right.
I mean, legacy.
I got it.
That's legacy Niners right there.
But in my conscious years,
fair.
Bill Belichick was the Bill Walsh.
Right.
Just Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, whatever.
Yeah.
My point is, so Dre is that guy.
Got it.
He's like, you do trauma, so you're going to go over here. You're going to be with these people. You do staff training. Because you do culture, you're going to go over here. You're going to train with the staff.
So
you go with the chaplain.
All the gang leaders together.
Yeah. So they put all the gang leaders in a room, and he was like, "Steve, go do your thing."
Don't they want to kill each other?
Go make them better. That's how Dre talks. Go make them better. So I walk into this room,
and they all want to kill each other.
I don't know what they want to do. I don't know what their motivations are.
If they're all from separate
But
gangs.
my job was to go in there and show them that they're not who they think they are. My job was to go in and show them the construct that they call themselves.
Okay.
And so to win over that crowd, or to at least create some type of rapport, I always start off with my story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that always piques curiosity. But then that's when I go into the first 14 years and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing it up to bring it back around to no child, and this is what I was explaining to them. I said, go show me a baby picture. Show me a baby picture and tell me that child wanted to grow up. But if the teacher said, what do you want to do when you grow up? Will that child raise his hand and say, I want to be a convicted murderer with a drug problem, no relationship with my kids, no relationship with my parents, spending 30 years in prison? That's my dream.
Yeah, nobody's saying that.
Right. I said now, the child in that baby picture, that's who you really are. Until you felt that it wasn't safe to be that. And you see him getting quiet. And I said, now, when did you feel that it was unsafe to be that sweet, innocent, loving, forgiving, helpful human being? Your environment at one point told you that you will get eaten alive being this way. And so you constructed this person to protect yourself. And I said, the challenge is you're like an undercover cop with no handler. You've been playing this role for so long. You think it's really you. You should have seen some of their faces. And so I said, and I had already built up the rapport at this point.
Yeah.
So I said, when did you invent this character? And I had already did the whole thing about the first 14 years, that whole spiel.
Yeah.
And dude was like, 13. And everybody went, oh. I said, see? Everything goes back to the first 14 years.
Yeah.
And I said, you were 13. And from that point on, you became this person. But
Created a persona.
But that's not who you really are.
Right.
I said, and then I said, for most gangsters, I said, you all know you're softer than a wet piece of bread on the inside. And I said, I'm gonna prove it to you. Because your girl be like, he not like that with me. And they all fell out with laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, see, she give you that good, and now all of a sudden you doing pillow talk, and you talking about your feelings and how you don't really want to hurt nobody, but you got to hurt somebody or people going to think you a bitch and this, that, and the other. And so you're really loving, but in order for you to keep those persona up, you got to hurt somebody.
You can't show that. Yeah.
You can't show that.
Right, yeah.
But you're not like that with her,
Right.
which means that's not who you really are.
Right.
Who you really are is who you are with her.
Mm-hmm.
And they just fell out laughing. They was like, bruh, get out my head. Like, I'm like, no, it's real though.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my message to them is there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
You're not a bad person. I get it. You took some people's lives. That's unfortunate. And I know you have remorse. But if you continue to believe that that's who you are, there's a bunch of guys running around today teaching different classes. The guy next door who was teaching the law class was also serving life in prison for murder until he decided he didn't want to be that anymore. And now he's a lawyer working with the city that he lives in as an advocate. So, and I said there's a bunch of other guys that are running around here that turn natural life sentences into getting out, turning their lives around, and now becoming beacons of hope and helping thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a massive shift. And that just occurred. I was flying back from somewhere and I watched 26.2 to Life. And I mentioned this to you. I don't know if you'd had a chance to see it yet. It was a documentary about this running club. So it's a volunteer group of people that come in, and they've created this running club in San Quentin.
Mm-hmm.
And San Quentin's maximum security prison. And the people that they highlight in this documentary are their life sentences. They've taken somebody's life or multiple people's lives. Different things have occurred. That's the reason why they're in there. But something that you said, which is also illustrated in this film, is that they have turned their lives around. They've beat the sentencing and been released and are now upstanding beacons of hope, as you put it, and contributing to the betterment of society.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable, because that's not in the general populace's mindset of that even being possible.
I want to just share this because I love what you're saying. I just want to point this out. Is it remarkable, or is it only remarkable because people say it's remarkable?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just think about that.
Yeah.
What if it wasn't remarkable?
Yeah.
What if it was just what's possible when you look at someone with love?
Sure. 100%.
And say, this is not who you are.
100%.
Wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up from the dream that you think is your trauma.
Right.
And when they wake up from the dream, because that's these people that we're saying is, oh, that's remarkable. No. They just woke up from the dream of the identity.
Yeah, and they're creating themselves in
and
a
they're
new way.
recreating themselves.
Yeah.
And the only thing that will create obstacles is for other people to say, no, you are who we think you are based on what you've done.
Sure.
But will then let themselves off the hook for the exact same shit.
Right. Exactly.
That's the human condition. That's the hypocrisy.
Sure. And
that's the hypocrisy of being a human being.
Yeah.
And so, like I said in the beginning, some people really are not safe
right. Yeah.
for society.
Right.
There's something really wired different. Okay? But for the majority, I believe it's a case of wrongful identity.
Yeah, I would agree.
And that is my mission, to prove that
Yeah.
to as many of them as possible, that this is a case of mistaken identity.
Yeah, and we're not talking about mistaken identity for the person
No.
who's incarcerated. Like,
You did
the
what you
fa- yeah,
did,
the facts
and you
are
deserve
there.
to do the time.
because there are those.
Yeah.
There are those.
But
Unfortunately,
you did what you
Yeah.
did,
Yeah,
and you deserve the time.
right,
You deserve the time out.
right,
You did what you did, but this is not who you are.
exactly. Yeah,
You did what you did. And so one of the distinctions that I made for them was, when I was leaving, I said, you're not who you think you are, but you are who you think you are.
yeah. Say that again. You need to say that again.
You're not who you think you are, but you are who you think you are.
Mm-hmm. There's a very subtle distinction in there. It's very subtle. And
Yeah.
I wanted you to repeat that because I want people to get that.
And that's the goal when I'm going into these prisons.
Yeah.
Is you're not who you think you are,
Yeah,
but you will continue to be who you think you are.
right.
But if I can help you see that you're not who you think you are, then it opens your life to a whole new level of possibilities.
Sure.
Because it doesn't matter if you've got 45 years. And I've shared this to them. This gets into the conversation of the Marvel Universe. One of the possibilities that I created for some of these folks was the multiverse exists in real life.
For sure. Yeah.
You just don't have to get into a time machine or do like this to experience it.
But that would be fun to do.
And so I'm teaching one of 4 cognitive behavior classes inside this prison, right? And again, fearless leader, Dre, he's just like, you're teaching the cognitive behavior therapy class. And I'm like, what? He's like, you're teaching the cognitive behavior therapy class. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to teach? You got it. Like, so I walk into the room and there's 36 dudes in there, right? And so again, I tell the story. That's how I get the hook
Like,
or
I'm
whatever.
gonna shank that dude and take his gold
Right.
chain right there.
So this is when I make the distinction
me some
about
new pair of
about
Vans.
Marvel. This is when I make the distinction. Oh, I got a funny thing to tell you about Vans. But don't forget to remind me to tell you about Vans. And so one of the distinctions that I made for the guys about Marvel, and I said, so this dude that was sitting right, it's like a U shape, right? And I'm standing, and I'm teaching. And I said, let me tell you guys, let me show you the Marvel Universe in real time. And they said, okay. I said, this guy's sitting right here. I said, now I'm up here teaching. If he just sits there and listen, he's going to have one experience of life. I said, but if he decides to get up and punch me in the face right now, will that change his day? And they go, yes. I said, will that change his week? They go, yes. I said, will it possibly add more time to a sentence for attacking a civilian? They said, yes. I said, so will that change the course of his life and the relationship with his kids and the relationship with everybody on the outside and the relationship with his current cellmate and the relationship with the warden? And will all of his relationships change off of that one action? And they go, yes. I said, that one action creates a completely different multiverse for him.
Right, yeah.
With every decision you make, you enter a new multiverse.
Right. It's butterfly effect.
It's a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
That's what the multiverse is.
Right.
All there is possibility. And every decision you make creates a new possibility.
Right.
So, and they were like, oh, shit. Now, back to the Vans, because I'm telling them, you're not who you think you are. So I said, let me give you an example. So I'm in the room with all the gang leaders. It's so funny. And I said, let's play a game. I'm going to show you how nobody's experiencing the same reality. I said, I want everyone in here to tell me the first thing you thought about me as soon as I walked in. And I was wearing all black and some Vans and a black hat. And so I said, and don't be nice. Like, be honest. It's only going to work if you're honest of what you really thought about me when I first walked in. I said, you can't hurt my feelings. It's fine. So one guy was like cheerful, energetic, happy, positive. Get to this guy over here, and he's like, and it's usually the ones that like put their head down. I'm like, you're the answer I'm looking for. What is it? And he goes, gay.
Because
Right.
you're not wearing
He
Adidas or Nike.
said,
You're wearing
and
Vans.
Everybody falls out laughing, right? Everybody's laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, he said, I thought you was gay. And so I'm in the class with Bimmy, the producer.
Mm-hmm.
And Bimmy looks at him and he goes, hey, wait. Before he goes on, he said, why you think he gay? Right? And the dude goes, because he's wearing the same as gay ass shit my cousin wears, them tight ass pants and Vans. I lost it. When I say funny. I could not hold my laughing in.
That's funny.
But everybody got it at that point.
Yeah.
That everyone is experiencing a different reality.
Yeah.
And I said, see, so even in this room, nothing is solid.
Yeah.
It's only what you think it is. And I said, the same thing is about your life. You're not who you think you are.
And here's another thing that is occurring to me as you share this story. I find it fascinating that one guy, and I'm not, maybe what those other guys were saying was true. Maybe that was what their like authentic first thought was.
Yeah.
However, as another possibility, they're giving answers because they know what this class is or whatever experience is about this thing. And so they're going to give the answers that they think are good, right, or acceptable answers, as opposed to the guy that totally just is unfiltered and unplugged.
There's always that one. I've done this in many rooms, and there's always that one.
But when it gets to him, the other guys are like, "Oh yeah, I thought that too," or you know what I mean? Like they're
one guy gives them permission, everybody else to be like, "Yeah, I kind of thought that too, but why didn't you say that?"
Exactly.
Right.
And so what's fascinating to me is because they're in this setting. Because it's, would you say it was a cognitive behavioral class?
No, this is, I was in a different, I was back with the gang leaders when I'm talking about this van story.
Yeah. But it's an environment of some kind of training.
Yeah.
Some kind of teaching and counseling, if you will.
Yeah.
But how many times do we show up and we give the answers that we think are the right answers? That's not honest.
Yeah.
And maybe we do feel that. So honesty might, but it's not the root level of the authenticity. Like, I'm like, who's this coming in here, like, trying to tell me who I need to be and all, right? You know, it's like that level of vulnerability and integrity, which that guy showed up with.
Yeah.
But it took 3 or 4 other people to get to that.
Yeah. Usually that is the sentiment when I first walk into one of these rooms is, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But then when I cut myself open and bleed in front of everyone, and I'm sharing the most vulnerable, darkest pieces. Right.
That a lot of them have experienced the same thing.
And then it's instant rapport.
Right.
And now I can ask them to share whatever I want them to share because I've bled out first. Yeah. And see, that's the difference between, and it's funny too, because at the end of the first day, they looked at Dre and said, literally word for word, if that nigga don't come back tomorrow, we're going to burn this bitch down. Because I had won them over at that point.
Yeah.
Because number one, I'm giving them answers. But I'm also relating them on the level that no one has been willing to relate. All the counselors.
Seen, they feel heard.
Because in traditional therapy, and they're not allowed to do that. Traditional therapists are not trained to bleed out
Right.
in front of everyone to build a rapport.
Right.
Jesus built a rapport with 2 billion people over the last 3,000 years because he literally bled out
Yeah.
for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I love you so much. I'm going to bleed out for you.
Right.
And when you get up and you share your story vulnerably, authentically, with all the lessons that you've learned, you're bleeding out. People have no choice but to relate to that. Do you know? Because they go, I could never do that. That's what they're thinking. They can, but they're thinking to themselves, I could never do that.
Yeah.
So I respect the person.
Right.
And now I feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel safe.
Exactly.
Because I know
unpack
whatever I'm
that.
going to say, because I had something similar, you're not going to judge me.
Right.
Because you went through it. And so people tend to get way more healing
Right.
in a space where they don't feel judged. And they only don't feel judged because the person that's doing the facilitating has said, let me air my dirty laundry first.
Right. I want to unpack why that makes people feel safe a little bit. And here's the thing that I've observed is that, and I've observed it in you, I've observed it in Judy, I've observed it in other people, and I've observed it even when I've done that myself. And people feel safe. People feel safe when you do that because you're extending a degree of trust with something so vulnerable from yourself.
Yeah.
That you're giving them this information about you, about what you feel, what you went through, what have you. And they feel safe because they feel trusted.
Yeah.
And the antithesis also occurs when we're not doing that. Right? For the other guys that are like, oh, you were happy, you were energetic, you were these things. Yeah, okay, those things all might be true, but because it wasn't a deeper level of authentic or vulnerable, they didn't extend a degree of trust with their own thoughts and heart. And so there's not the same degree of safety and depth that occurs.
Yeah. And in the past, I have bashed therapy. Only because once I understood that healing was possible, complete healing. And that there was nothing wrong with people. Once I made that discovery out of overzealousness, young, then I began to bash therapy, right? And what they're doing wrong.
Right.
So let me correct myself. Therapy is a great starting point. But like religion, it has its limits.
Yeah.
Of how much it can help for a couple of reasons. One, because the ones who are being trained to do the therapy have yet to take the log out of their own eye. Many people in the field of mental health counseling, therapy, quit. Will tell a patient, I can no longer see you. And it's because they're triggered. I was having a conversation with 2 people going through MFT training right now. My wife is an MFT, as you know, marriage and family therapist. And they had went through one of my classes. And they said, in school, we're in school right now. And he says, they teach us that when we get triggered, if we're too triggered, we just politely say, I don't think I could serve you anymore. They don't say, I'm triggered because you were touched as a kid and I was touched as a kid. And by you reliving your shit, it's triggering my shit. So I can no longer see you. right? Now that makes the person that's been doing the confiding feel like there's something wrong with me. My therapist gave up on me. My therapist said they can't help me, that there's somebody else.
Right.
When really the problem was with the therapist, not the person that was speaking.
Sure. And then there's another aspect to it too, because I was a really good friend of mine was psychologist, therapist, and dealing with, family and marriage. And guess how many marriages he had gone through?
Personally.
4.
Yeah.
And I loved the guy. Like, he was amazing. And I mean, we hung out quite a bit, and we had a lot of great, meaningful talks. However, because of his personal example, what you're sharing, and this is to your point, is that I wasn't inspired by how he was living personally. Therefore, I wasn't going to go to him for marriage advice.
Right. Even though he was a marriage and family therapist.
Now, some might argue, well, because he's gone through a lot of marriages and has a lot of experience in dealing with all these different issues, that he's probably more qualified than not. Here's the challenge, is that he may or may not have been practicing the things that he was imparting on other people. But the thing that I desired was not to end a relationship and start a new one. It was to work on my stuff to get through so that I can keep the one that I have.
Right.
And so the example that like you might have amazing input about how to deal with the grief of the loss of a relationship. That is not what I came here for.
Yeah.
I came here to deal with the things that are stopping me from having a good relationship with my current relationship.
Right.
Because I have no desire to cut that one loose and try and start another one. Because all that's going to occur is I'm going to be right back in this same place at this same time in the new relationship with just a different person.
Yeah. And I'm not calling for the end of therapy.
Mm-mm.
What I'm calling for actively is that we rethink what therapy is and who's qualified
Right.
to deliver it.
And what therapy isn't.
Right. And what it isn't.
Yeah.
But more importantly, who is doing the therapy?
Yeah.
If if we're going to truly serve people, which is not really what the system is set up for, but that's a conversation for another day.
That's another podcast.
Right.
Or many.
But if we're really going to serve people, then Jesus laid it out perfectly. So simple. Take the log out of your eye, and you will clearly see how to help your brother.
Right.
When I woke up from the dream that was Steve Bacon, I said, oh, now I could see the dream everybody else is in.
Mm-hmm.
I can clearly see how to help my brother or sister.
Right.
Right? When Steve woke up from the dream of his trauma, there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
I had it all wrong.
Right.
He clearly saw how to help everybody else. And so through experience, Steve and I have lived those words of Jesus. Take the log out of your own eye.
I find it.
And you will clearly see how to help your brother. And guess what? You don't really need a lot of formal training for that.
No. L.E.
It's
LE
lived
versus,
experience.
Yeah.
So when I was teaching that cognitive behavior therapy class, let me show you. The lady, I bless her heart. She's such a sweet lady. And I thankful to her, she invited me in to teach her class. She had a PhD in everything. She invited me in to teach her class. I was a guest. So I'm going around the table, the 36 dudes, and I'm shaking everybody's hand. I'm looking them in the eye and say, what's your name and what do you hope to get out of our time in the next 2 hours? And I get around to this one guy, and I shake his hand. I immediately pull my hand back, and I said, why is your hand so sweaty? And everybody starts laughing, but I'm serious. Like, it felt like I just shook a puddle, right? And he puts his head down, and he's like, I was nervous. Are you coming around? And I'm like, why are you nervous, son? And he's like, I have social anxiety. So I'm nervous that you was going to come over here and everybody was going to look at me. And I said, I want you to understand something. I said, and I love you. I don't know you, but I love you. And I said, here's our first lesson of the day. And then I just went full Steve Bacon on him. You don't have no fucking social anxiety. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Right? And he looks up, and I said, son, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You do not have social anxiety. That is a story you have constructed in your mind, and it is asinine. I'm going to prove it. Everyone in this room is the star of their own movie. We're all extras in your movie. But what you have refused to recognize is that you are an extra in all of ours. So the level of self-centeredness that you have to have in order to claim social anxiety is that we don't have our own lives going on. That you are the star in all of our movies, and all we're doing and thinking about and paying attention to is you. I said, boy, we don't give a fuck about you. With love.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about you. We're not thinking about what you're thinking about. We're not thinking about how you're responded, because everyone in here is caught up in their own movie. And you're just an extra, the guy who claims he has social anxiety.
Right, yeah. And some buddy told him,
right,
in some session somewhere, that
Eric,
they gave him a diagnosis. And so what does he do? He believes it.
Right.
Because some expert told him.
Right.
And so because he believes it, he gives language to it.
Right.
And because he gives language to it, he gives power to it, and then he lives into that.
Eric,
and that
when
becomes
I say
his reality.
When I say you saw him kind of sit up a little straight, and then I said, now take this marker and go over to that board and write everything I'm about to say. And I said, I want you to know that everyone in this room is going to be staring at you, and there is nothing wrong with you. I said, as a matter of fact, y'all, when you see him walking through the hallway, look him in his eye, and as you pass him, turn around and continue to look at him and then call him stupid for thinking such a dumb thing about himself. And then remind him of his perfection. He went up on and wrote everything and left. And when I left, I came back the following week. I said, how's this social anxiety? He was like, I ain't got it. I said, I know you did. You never did. It's a construct.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are pure perfection. And everything about you that is not the story of pure perfection is a lie. It's all a lie. It's a construct. It's a construct that you created a long time ago. And you've been living this construct for so long that you're in this dream and you cannot see that it is a dream because you've been so deep in it. Have you ever had a dream at night that was so vivid, so real, and you felt so conscious in that you really thought that that's what your life was until you woke up in your bed and realized you were dreaming. What if I told you that you woke up from a dream into another dream? The dream of your identity. The dream of your limitation. The dream that there is something wrong with you. And it's time for you now to wake up from that dream so that you could do what you actually came to this earth to do, but you cannot do it so long as you are stuck in this dream.
Mm-hmm. So, got 2 words for you that's going to change your life. You ready?
Yes.
You might want to write this down. Okay.
You sure I need to write it down?
Yeah, I mean,
it's only 2 words.
It's 2 words. It's going to change your life. You know what they are?
What is that?
Wake up.
You know, and there's so many more prison stories.
I'd love for you to share real quick, if you got a minute, about the one that you shared in the hallway.
Oh,
about the woman and her sisters.
So,
because that as subtle as that is,
it's
as obvious as that is,
obvious to the rest of us, but man, it wasn't obvious to her. So, I frequently visit a women's prison, and I take all my work there, my breakthrough work, and it's interesting how just over the years, this breakthrough work has gone from really technical to it's going to take me 8 hours a day for 3 days, to, it's only going to take me 4 hours a day for 2 days, to now it's one conversation and get the same, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing. So now taking it to prisons, doing it as groups, right? So if you know of a prison that you think that they want this breakthrough work in, this is the time for you to reach out. If you know someone that can actually make that happen,
Or if you're inspired to do this similar type of work and want to maybe collaborate and invite Steve to your
if you're doing this, if you work at a
man.
prison, or if you're the warden of a prison, or you're doing work at a prison and you want to collab, holla at me. But so I'm doing this breakthrough work, and I've got about 30 women in the room, and we did it over 3 Fridays. First Friday, we did, mom or dad, whichever one that you had the biggest problem with first. Second Friday, we came back and we did the other parent. Third Friday was self. So the second Friday, this girl, she's sitting in the chair, and I'm like, who wants to be in the hot seat? And she comes over to the hot seat. And I said, so what's your issue with your dad? And she says, well, my dad's first 2 daughters was from his first marriage. And then he met my mom, and he had me. Well, I felt like I meant nothing to my dad, because when he would go get his other daughters, my sisters, and bring them to my mom's side of the family reunions, he would introduce them and not me as his daughters. And I just paused. And I said, did you just hear what came out of your mouth? She said, what? And this is how in the dream people are. This is how in your dream you are. I said, did you just hear the words that came out of your mouth? And she said, what? I said, you said my dad would go get my sisters from their mom and bring them to my mom's family gatherings or reunion and introduce them and not me. And I said, what did the little girl make that mean? And she goes, well, that I wasn't as important as them. I said, with love, hey, dummy. And all the other women are starting to pick up on, because I'm pointing this out and she's not getting it.
Right. Yeah.
But the other women are getting it now.
Yeah. And by the way, somebody who's listening to the story right now isn't getting it yet.
Yeah. And I said, hey, dummy, with love. And people say, why do you talk to people like that? Because I want them to see the stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important that you see the stupidity, because that's what breaks you out of it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my way of showing you the stupidity.
Right.
Hey, dummy. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're being right now.
Yeah.
I said, why would he need to introduce you to people who already know you?
Oh.
And she kind of looked. She kind of looked. And I said, think about it. He's going to get his daughters from his baby mama, to bring them to his current wife,
Right.
and daughter's side of the family's gatherings.
Right.
They don't know these two girls,
Right.
but they know you.
Yep.
So then he says, these are my daughters, so-and-so and so-and-so. You're upset because he can go, oh, and this is my other daughter. But they already know you. They see you all the time. She started laughing just like that. When I say her tears,
Hey, dummy.
when I say her tears turned into complete laughter.
Wow.
And everybody's laughing at this
Right,
point. She
yeah.
went, I said, welcome back.
Welcome back. And she was probably, 7, 8 years old at the time?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
welcome back.
Making that mean something?
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that little girl who took that personal has led you to prison. And now a grown woman got to serve a little girl sentence.
Yeah.
And I said, you need to call your dad. And she goes, he's actually coming to visit me on Sunday. He comes every Sunday. I said, oh, and you've been telling yourself all these years he doesn't love you as much as he loves them, but he comes to visit you every Sunday and drives a couple hours to do it.
Wow.
And she's just like, oh my God. It's like, wake up from the dream.
Right. What was she in for? Just curious.
I don't know. I don't ask.
Yeah, yeah. Is that like part of the rules? Like you don't?
No, I just don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
What you did is of no consequence to me.
Sure, it's not who you are.
It's not who you. You're already serving your time.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Right. You're already serving your time.
Yeah.
So what you did is of no consequence to me.
Right. Yeah.
My job is to make sure that when you get out of here, you never come back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because the behavior that you demonstrate is attached to the identity of who you think you are.
Right.
If I can show you or get you to see that you're not who you think you are, then the behavior stops too.
Right. How many times do people come back?
What?
How many times? I mean, obviously, this is probably new, groundbreaking work that's being done. Right. I mean, it's relatively new work for you to be in there doing this work. Obviously, Andre's been in this space and he's been doing the work for some time. How many people end up back in prison?
The recidivism rate is extremely high.
That aren't doing this work.
Yeah, the recidivism rate is extremely high inside of prison. I mean, some people, like I met a guy who was in there since he was 19. He was 40. He was like 50 something.
Oh, wow.
He was getting ready to get out. He was terrified.
Yeah.
He was terrified. There was no cell phones or internet when he went in.
Right. Yeah.
So just think of everything that has occurred since the internet.
Yeah. Wow. It's a different world.
He's terrified
Yeah.
to be back on the street.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that he will do something to go back to prison, because that's where he's more comfortable, is very high.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really don't know what to do out in the free world.
Right. Well,
and that's a much easier world to control.
And how difficult is
for
it
them?
How difficult is it in the quote unquote free world?
Yes.
When you have a prison record.
Well, that too, but also what I mean is when I say easier to control, I meant like what I meant was when you're in prison, you get 3 hots in a cot. You know you got somewhere to sleep. You might have to, be alert, but you got somewhere to sleep. You got food. You got your basic needs covered.
Yeah.
Everything else is extra, right? You get your commissary and all that other stuff. But it's easier for them to figure out how to make that happen in that small little world,
right? Than
when you get out and you're in this big world.
Yeah.
And you have no job. And no steady place to live.
There's no structure because
there's no structure to help.
The structure isn't being.
Everybody's judging the fuck out of you.
You have
right.
To put the
Everybody's
on.
Judging you.
Yeah.
And you have to do it. That is scary.
Yeah.
So then it's like I want to go back.
Yeah.
Because this is
right
easier for me to adjust to than all of that out there. I've met literally some women who was like, "I'm glad I'm here. I'm happy to be here."
Wow.
Like, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I feel safer and more at peace in here than I do out there.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's really hard for free people to understand.
Right.
So when I say this has been a life-changing experience for me, because I'm starting to understand why some people are really institutionalized.
Yeah.
And it's out of fear.
Right. And
fear.
Choice. And they're making that choice.
Yeah.
Right. They're making the choice. They want to be in there because it feels safer.
It feels, and that's some of the experiences, not all of the experiences,
Sure.
but it's some. Like I said, I've met at this point a lot, and I've had a lot of conversations.
Yeah, it's cool
with people behind bars, and some of them there for 6 more months, and some of them like I'm never getting out.
So they think.
Yeah,
that's the other part that.
Because laws change. Some people think they're never getting out, then the law changes, and the next thing you know, they're getting their papers to go home.
Sure, yeah.
That happens
people
too.
Were locked up for smoking weed. It's been decriminalized all over the place. But what's cool is the work that you're doing. I enjoy it. I want to take a few moments and just acknowledge you for the powerful work that you're doing in that space for people that in general society have tossed aside.
Just one last thing on that. A lot of the world's problems can be solved by the people that are locked up behind bars.
Sure.
I'm dead. I am so serious.
Yeah.
There are some really, really smart people behind bars. And when I say this addiction issue, your best counselors are behind bars. Violence prevention, some of your best assets are behind bars. When I say these people know the game better than anybody.
Yeah.
And now look at Andre. Andre knew the game better than anybody. Ran the prisons that he was in. Talking about so famous that when he would get shipped to another prison, guards would like, I heard Andre's in this prison, and then go down to solitary confinement to just look at him. It's like, that's him. He was like the freaking Jay-Z of prison to the guards and the inmates.
Yeah.
Right? And then he decided, I'm the king of nowhere. One day, I'm the king of nowhere. This is not where I want to spend the rest of my life. Changed his life around and then changed the prison landscape for 25 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, violence prevention, gang prevention, shifting things inside the entire, raising money, working for the White House, becoming a Harvard Business Fellow. Like, literally, he's the poster child of reentry.
Yeah.
The poster child. Do you know how many Andre Normans exist behind bars?
Oh, I'm sure there's tons.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's got boardrooms around the world calling him to come do leadership training.
Yeah.
So when I look at these people, my brothers and sisters locked behind bars, I see more Andre Normans,
Sure.
male and female. Now, what can I do to unlock that in you?
Yeah.
Because you got work to do too.
Yeah, for sure.
Moses was a murderer. Paul was a murderer. So, I mean, if we're talking scripture, the Bible is.
You want to talk about famous murderers, and let's start with King David,
right? So it's
which ironically is also known by the man who's after God's own heart.
Right. So that part is interesting to me because when I say that, I literally mean, well, that's in scripture.
Sure it is.
That some of the biggest characters in scripture were murderers.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's something there.
Right.
There's something there that these characters.
But I want to get back to acknowledging you. Because you got a lot to offer to a lot of people, and you could do a lot of things. And the thing that's driving you, and the thing that's lighting you up, and the thing that you're most passionate about in making a difference in people's lives, and the choices that you're making from wherever the inspiration started till now, and where it's taking you. I think more people need to follow that example. More people need to, first of all, do the identity work, recognize what their gifts are and who they are, and then serve other people powerfully with those. And that's what I see you doing. And I've seen you do that from day one when we met for the first time, before we even met, through a video you posted that my wife shared. And the depth of work that you're willing to do on yourself, the vulnerability and the depth in which you're willing to, as you so put it earlier, bleed out. That's a reflection of who God is. And that's what I see in you. And I think I'm grateful that we get to do this together. I'm grateful that we get to unpack these conversations, and I'm grateful that we're recording it and it's serving somebody that we haven't met and we might not ever meet.
Yeah.
Because that's who you are. That's who I see you as. And don't ever ditch me again. don't ever. I mean, I know you're going to try. I know you're going to try.
That's the construct you're going to build that I ditched you?
I'm gonna give you some words. Take them and create whatever story that you want to create with them. But I will come and find you.
Okay.
I have a certain set of skills, and I will find you.
You're hilarious. Here's the possibility that I'd like to create. And this is for all of you that are watching. The possibility I'd like to create in this moment is that I wish to take my work to as many prisons across the United States as possible. Now, in order for me to do that and to be a volunteer to do that, there's expenses. There are hotels, there's travel, there's rent-a-cars.
Oh, wait, you mean you're not staying in the prison?
No. No.
Yeah, let's create some other experience that you get to have.
I would like to spend at least the next decade of my life freeing as many people mentally as I can in behind those walls. Mm-hmm. Because for number one, I believe a lot of people behind bars have a lot to offer society. A lot. These are people that have gone to the darkest parts of humanity And as much as they've gone to the darkest parts in their commitment to being whoever they thought they were, that level of commitment going in the opposite direction I've seen create absolute miracles
Yeah, 100%.
in society. So that's number one. Number two, the more people that get help inside of there, the safer people are on the streets on the outside, because these folks are going to get out. And if they don't get the help that they need on the inside, and I'm not saying that prisons aren't providing the help, but specifically the work that I do with helping people wake up from the dream of the first 14 years, it's a gift that I would like to give these individuals. And financially, I could use the support.
Yeah.
So the possibility that I'd like to create is one where I get to travel. I get to do this work. I get to read you the letters on this show and through social media posts, the impact that's being made, and it's all being funded by you.
Yeah.
That's the possibility I'd like to create.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm here for that. And what is occurring to me as you were sharing that is that you've said the phrase behind bars a number of times as we've been talking about, obviously, the prison work. But what occurred to me is that there are people that aren't physically behind bars, but are mentally and emotionally behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
And they might be free and living their lives outside the scope of the four walls of a prison, physically. But they're trapped in the behind bars, in the four walls of the constructs of their mental stories, their emotional condition, and their spiritual condition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as you described a lot of work, a lot of that applies,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they're physically behind bars or not.
Yeah.
And as long as people can recognize that and they can resonate with that, perhaps that helps keep them from going to prison in the first place.
Correct.
And maybe that wouldn't even occur. But to free them from those shackles and from those prisons, man, that's the next level of work. And hopefully, my hope is that as people are watching this, they don't get tripped up on the one singular dimension of that, but they can see that, oh, I need to get a handle on my anger, or I need to get a handle on my emotion, or I need to get a handle on really understanding, who do I think I am? And creating a new story and being the best version of themselves.
And the way you know you're in a dream is if you're experiencing suffering.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast right there. I get some thoughts on that. We're going to start talking about suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a part of the dream.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't suffer.
Okay. Well, we're going to leave it right there because it's 1:11.
That's funny. That's good. I
that's
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Brother, I love you.
Love you too.
And I'm glad we're back. And we're not going anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for spending another beautiful Sunday with me and my brother, the Professor of Possibility. Have a great Sunday.
Cheers.